Joining us in the cupboard of the Movieland spotlight this month is Hal Scardino, a director, producer, and former child actor from New York, known from his appearances in Marvins Room, The Indian in the Cupboard, and the current co-founder of the Open Art Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, or should I say, how?
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, first I'd like to know a little bit about how you got started in the film industry and who inspired you.
I got started because I was at school in New York. I was only 7 years old, and a casting director came to our school and asked a bunch of kids if they wanted to audition for a movie. And I was one of those kids, basically. I was an audition for the lead role. When I got into the room, the casting director asked me if I knew how to play chess. And I did. I grew up playing chess with my grandfather. So we played a game of chess. We talked for a while. I didn't end up getting the lead role, but I went away on vacation to Wyoming with my family, and they called me and asked me if I wanted to play the best friend, and that's how I got it. Who inspired me? I mean, I was so young at the time. I was inspired by comic book characters, and because I have an older brother who's 5 years older, he basically dictated what I liked and didn't like at such a young age. So G.I. Joe cards and comics and rollerblading, those were my passions, and I looked up to my brother.
So it was something just as a spur of the moment. You just wanted to give it a try because it was there. So it wasn't something you were like actively pursuing.
No, I wasn't actively pursuing it at all. I was kind of an introverted kid, and I think most people would say nobody would have imagined that I would do something like that. It was during the summer vacation shooting in Toronto. It was an opportunity to spend my summer doing something different. So I thought, why not give it a try?
Yeah, it's definitely a nice homage as well, especially because you said you already had that background in chess. That was going to be one of my questions because it's quite a complex game, especially for a kid. And this one's actually based on a true story, this movie, about that chess prodigy. And like I seen it at a very young age, so seeing it pop up again, I was like, I remember that. But yeah, I've never been very good at chess. So it's a selected thing. So yeah, so you still play chess much at all?
I do. I still play with my brother. My grandfather is no longer with us, of course, but I still play with friends here and there for sure.
I've only ever played against the computer. I think the try with the missus every now and then, and she just blows me off the board. It's a crazy game.
It's hard, but
it's something I'd like to learn, but it's definitely hard. But as you got the supporting role in this film opposite Joe Mantegna from Baby's Day Out, and also Laurence Fishburne, known as Morpheus from The Matrix in one of his earliest roles there. How was it like working with those guys?
They were so kind and generous with their time. Lawrence, or Larry as he went by back then, he's a big guy, and I was a very, very small kid. So he was kind of intimidating to be next to him and chatting with him. But those guys, they were wonderful to be around. And Joan Allen as well, who plays Joe's wife, she was great too. Max, who played the lead, he and I were good friends as well. So it was a nice cast to be a part of.
Yeah, especially for your first role. It's great you had that good experience there. So was it more like had a lot of fun on set? Like, cause as you said, this is something you kind of just jumped to for experimental wise. Was this first experience something you're like, yeah, I could really get into this?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, especially at that age, I think the people really make the experience because you're less sort of involved or into the work or into the script. You're not totally aware of what's going on. You're carried by those around you.
Yeah, so this is coming without any prior acting training or anything, right? So you just dove straight headfirst into your first role with no experience.
That's right. No experience. I don't even remember being in a school play at that age.
That's something I'd never heard before. So very, very well done, sir. And then it wasn't until your next role, straight off the bat, 1995, you got a lead role in Indian in the Cupboard, based on the book, came out in 1980. How did this role come about after searching for Bobby Fischer?
This was, there was nobody who worked on Searching for Bobby Fischer who also worked on Indian in the Cupboard. They weren't really connected. I was on vacation again in France with my family. By this point, we had already moved to England. I was I was in school. The audition was in Los Angeles, and I went with my mother. Apparently competed against a lot of other kids, but from the recognition, I think, from searching Bobby Fischer and the audition meant that I got the role.
Yeah, that's amazing. The book was actually quite popular. It sold over 15 million copies. It was a New York Times best novel of the year labeled as, and movie was directed by Frank Oz, who did Dark Crystal and Little Shop of Horrors. It wasn't a box office hit, but I think it's very sentimental and nostalgic to a lot of us 80s and 90s kids. And for me especially, like I bring it up to a lot of people, and even if it's not something they've rewatched or watch a lot, like it's something that like, yes, like you remember that when it came out, and it's a very magical movie for me to think about. And it's not one I caught in the cinema, unfortunately, but I do remember the hype for it being at the cinema, and I really wanted to go. So the hype leading up to it, I've got a special little story. They had a book fair coming to the schools. Was in primary school at this stage, and they still do it now, which is quite interesting. The book fairs where they give you those little pamphlets with all the books that you can buy at the school. And Indian in the Cupboard, the movie novelization version of the book was in there, and it was the first time I kind of seen a movie being transformed into a book, although I didn't know it was a book before that anyway. Right. So I wasn't a big book reader, still not, more of a movie guy, but I was so impatient to see the movie that I thought having the novel version was like a crystal gem for me, an advanced screening, if you will.
I remember that. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I've held on to that for a long time, and I was extremely excited. I didn't read it, but I was looking for the pictures, and I went, "There's no pictures," but it still felt exciting to have that.
I haven't seen that in a while.
I got a little bit more show and tell for you, so I didn't have to wait for it to hit VHS. Pretty sure I rented it. This is the retail version of the videotape that I just got recently, but this one is a bit of a rarity. Is the US version, but this one's sealed in plastic, and it has the Indian still sealed inside at the top of the videotape. Isn't that something?
And I think that one, if you open it and you take out the sleeve and reverse it, it's looks like a cupboard.
Yeah. I think it has a picture there. I've never been one to want to open the plastic around the thing to get the plastic Indian out. So I'm just going to leave it in the plastic. Okay.
Sounds good.
I hope everyone gets what I mean with the plastic thing and it sound retarded. Plastic. Yeah, this was your first lead role. How did you prepare for something like this? You know, obviously, you know, you said you had no training. You kind of just went in the first one. Like, did you, try to take this one a bit more of a different approach, or did you just dive headfirst as you did with the first film?
Well, I mean, again, I was only 9 years old when we started shooting. So it wasn't like I was going through a lot of script analysis or, extensive preparation. I was in school. It was a 6-month long shoot. So I had to prepare myself for all of the school that I was going to be missing. I did read the script a bunch of times. I did my brother was a big fan of the books. I talked to him for a while about those. But in terms of sort of actual preparation style thing, there wasn't a lot going on. I was kind of focusing on being a kid.
Probably just felt like another day at work, like school, this day, work, that, yeah, and so act.
Not quite like that, but to a certain extent.
Yeah. I was going to say, were you familiar with the books beforehand? So you were a little bit there. So yeah. I did analyze the book a little bit just recently to check how they kind of relate to the script. And it's pretty on point, I think, besides the ending of the book. What was the most memorable moment while filming this one?
As soon as you asked that, I was thinking the most memorable moment of searching Bobby Fischer, which was kind of comical, actually, where I had to run to the end of a corridor to speak to a group of people behind a fence. And the director said, when you finish, turn right and run back. But he didn't explain that it was his right, not my right. And so I turned and I ran straight into the camera. And and almost knocked myself out. And that's still stuck in my head. But from In the Cupboard, possibly not from the movie, actually, was the shooting took place during my birthday. We had a break for Christmas. But before I left, there was this crew of, I don't remember, maybe over 100 people who were there singing happy birthday for me. To be the center of attention like that was kind of a weird experience, but it also stuck in my mind. In terms of the film, I think my relationship with Frank was an ongoing good feeling that I had, ongoing memorable feeling.
What were some of the challenges working with the special effects in this movie with obviously the miniatures and everything? I tried to dig for some like behind the scenes on this. There's really nothing about the production of this film, and I'm guessing there was a lot of separate filming, especially between you and Litefoot. Like, were you ever in the same room? Like, how did that really play out?
Yeah. So Litefoot and I were never in the same room. I shot during the day and he shot at night. I usually started about 6:30 in the morning and then would finish around 5 or 6 at night. Sometimes it'd be later and we would sort of be on different sound stages. But for me, it was challenging. I was mostly speaking to thin air, or they generously put a wire stick man in my hand sometimes to give me some sort of point of reference. But usually it was to nothing. I would say, yeah, that was a pretty significant challenge. The whole thing is about your imagination and exploring your imagination. And I'm talking about acting and filming in general. And when you're having essentially a fake conversation with somebody, you've got to make it real for you. And I was doing the same thing when I was talking to thin air. So it was a challenge because it was weird, but it wasn't sort of that different from the overall challenge of making a movie.
It's an interesting way of putting it. And I definitely thought of this, like I was rewatching it today and just thinking, I bet they were never in the same room. But there's one scene towards the end where you both, are like in the jungle together. Was even that scene not together?
No.
Wow. Did you even meet the guy?
I would sometimes, after I finished work, I would go and watch him. But I would say, arguably, he had it even more difficult because everything was CGI for him. For me, it was only he was CGI, whereas for Litefoot, the bedroom, the hut, everything that he was dealing with was, except what he had in his hands, his javelin or his bow and arrow, it was all CGI. So he had it. Back then, it was I think now they would call it a blue stage, but back then it was a green stage. He had it much more difficult than I did.
For that era of filmmaking, the CGI was great. Like, I was rewatching it today, trying to find some flaws, and just I can't see any. It's very good for its time. I mean, especially in that era of filmmaking, there was a lot of films touching base and that kind of big and small with, like, say, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So
yeah,
it's good to see at that era with CGI being so good. The motion tracking of, like, just having the Indian in your hand and moving him around, like the motion tracking was just spot on. So it's very good. And like the chemistry between you two, you could feel it. But yeah, Litefoot was actually his first film, this one. He was actually discovered by casting while he was performing at a rap concert. He had no acting experience prior that I could read up about, but he had a lot of input into the character of Little Bear. I was going to say, like, what would have it been like working with him, but you didn't. But do you keep in touch with him at all?
We don't keep in touch. I mean, I say that we didn't sort of see each other, and that was just in the sort of film sphere. He had to come in a little earlier than I did. He had to do his tattoos, which were scrubbed off every day and started every morning. So he and I talked a lot in the makeup and hair trailer. But no, I hear about his movements and activities through Frank, but I think he lives in, I want to say, Colorado or something like that now. He's an activist, and I think he still performs as a hip-hop artist. But no, we don't keep in touch.
I think obviously it's more special to some people than others, and others it's just a job, especially those who worked on it. But I was going to say, is it much of a meaningful project to you at all, or something you just kind of, it's just a summer job for you?
For a long time, it defined my life. The impact it had on me at school, for example, was huge. People treated me differently. Some people were very curious about my experience. Some people were nasty about my experience. But whatever it was, people treated me not as a sort of normal kid. You know, I might get on the soccer field, I might get tackled harder than I would otherwise get, or things like that. I realized around Marvin's Room maybe sort of concretized it, but I realized at a very early age that acting was what I wanted to do. And that was because of these experiences. And so it defined my life.
I'm glad it had a meaningful impact on your life. Look at it in a positive way, but despite some of the negativity that does come with it. But just stay strong. Don't worry about that stuff. So it's a lot of people look at this and smile, especially from the heart. So that's very, very well done what you've done, and especially with a little preparation for this. It's an amazing film. Litefoot was great. Again, it's crazy when I see some of these films and see no acting credits prior. You just see straight heart and soul put into these films. Yeah, I had a brief interaction with Litefoot online. Kind of tagged him in some photos. But yeah, same with you. I've been bugging you for a long time. I was like, I need to talk about this film. So it means a lot. There's a couple other great actors in this film. One that stands out for me is your brother who hands you the cupboard, Vincent Cassel. He's from one of my favorite films back in the 90s called Masterminds. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
I haven't seen it, no.
It's a good one. He kind of just, he's a bit of a hacker.
Indeed. I mean, this was, as you said, 1994, 1995. We had pagers. And so that was how we, outside of the film, outside of shooting, that's how we kept in touch, was via pager, which I think I still have his pager number somewhere.
Oh, it still works? You guys still page? Oh, wow. I've actually never had a pager. I'm not sure if they're a thing in Australia, but I've never known anyone to have one. But I do recognize them from the movies. So I must, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, a more of an American thing.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, speaking of other cast members, your best bud in the film, Rushy Bat. Keep in touch with him at all?
No, not at all. I heard that he's from Chicago, and I heard that he sold a software company for a lot of money when he was a teenager, but that's the only bit of info I have about him.
Yeah, the magic of the Indian in the cupboard goes far beyond the fantasy of tiny toys coming to life. It carries a powerful message for kids about empathy, responsibility, and respect for others. Like, I think, I came away from that film, feeling all sorts of emotions I wasn't prepared for. And, rewatching it just recently, I just noticed the first 5 minutes of the film sets up so quickly, the setup for the cupboard as a birthday gift. Boom, there. The mother has the key for the cupboard. Boom, there it is. And all these questions started to bubble up in my mind about the origins of the cupboard or the key and everything. Was it the cupboard that had the magic? Was it the key that had the magic? How does the backstory of this work? Is it time travel? How does all of that work? Do you have kind of a theory on any of these things?
I don't, to be honest. I think that they have a lot to condense into the length of a film from a book. And so they make some quick choices and present things much quicker. Than there's less of a build up and reveal than you might expect. But in terms of the explanation of how these things work, I think that's the beauty of magic. You don't really understand. And if you do understand, then it loses the magic. So I can't say.
It is good that they left it out and made it more of a magical feeling for the movie. However, the books do touch base. I don't know if you're familiar with the sequel books at all.
I read them, but it's been 30 years.
I had a field day. I basically dropped what I was doing and read everything. Yeah, they explore the origins of the magic in the cupboard. Do you need any spoilers, or should I just leave it as magic? Another thing I love about this film is the score. It's done by Randy Eldman. He did Ghostbusters 2, The Mask, and Drop Dead Fred. Some people say this film is overscored, which meaning too much going on for nothing that's happening. I understood that, but at the same point, it adds more feeling to this film.
It does have a very prominent role in the film. I remember that. I haven't watched it in a long time, but I don't know. I liked it.
Well, if there was a modern sequel done, not a reboot, bringing you at your age now into the story, would that be something of interest for you to return to?
So if they did the sequel, The Return of the Indian?
I would say, because I'm writing outside theory, not saying, going by the books, if there were a modern kind of sequel, obviously Omri would be older now. Same with Litefoot, or Little Bear would be older. Some kind of different story.
Yeah, maybe if a different story, sure. I mean, if Frank directs it, I'll do it in a heartbeat. I guess it depends on the group of the team, the creative team they put together.
So aside from Darth Vader, T-Rex, and RoboCop, if you could put anything in that cupboard, what would it be?
That's a good question. I mean, this is cheating a bit, but if I could put my dog in there and he could then talk, and I could figure out some answers that I've been needing to figure out for a long, long time, I would love that. Other than that, I guess favorite figurine growing up was Stretch Armstrong. Do you remember him?
Yeah.
I probably would put him in there and see what havoc he could wreak.
That's a great one. I pondered on this question all night and I couldn't come up with anything that crazy, but I did think it'd be funny to put Woody from Toy Story in there. It's like, now I know you're alive, you have to talk.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's great. Is there anything else about Indian in the Cupboard you wanted to throw in there?
The amazing script. It was written by Melissa Matheson, who wrote E.T. She was a dear soul and her script was magical. And I use that specific word for the context that we're talking about. I think that, without her words, obviously we would not be here having this conversation.
It's definitely an amazing script, obviously coming back from the books as well, but team effort, as you say, like Frank being the director there, everyone had a team effort in making that masterpiece, and you should be 100% proud of that, and hopefully I get some new fans or get people rewatching that one for you.
Thank you.
Your next film was in 1996. It seemed like you're on a bit of a steamroll to just film after film right here. You went into Marvin's Room with Leonardo DiCaprio, Meryl Streep, and Robert De Niro. Leo just finished filming for Romeo and Juliet, and he was just on his way with his ticket to the Titanic. So this was a big turning point in Leonardo's film career here. And and how was it working on this film?
I think actually he did Romeo and Juliet right after.
Okay.
Because he wanted me to be in Romeo and Juliet, and so
really?
had to have been after.
Maybe the release came out different time-wise. Curious, what role did he try to get you in for that one?
He wanted me to play Mercutio, his best friend.
Really? Interesting.
But that's another story. I don't know if you want to hear it, but we can.
Please go.
Well, so we got along great, really great. He was, I think, 21 or 22 during Marvins Room. Incredible creative performer. In every moment, he would sing Michael Jackson and dance like Michael Jackson right up until they said action with the camera, and then he would flip and would instantly be the character that he was supposed to be. And just incredibly talented guy. Off the set, we played a lot of video games. We gave me some life advice. I was only 12, so he wasn't super interested in hanging out all the time, but he was a sweet man. Felt very lucky to work with him. After Marvin's Room finished, he was going to doing Romeo and Juliet in Mexico. He wanted me to come along and play his best friend Mercutio. And so Baz Luhrmann and my father had a phone conversation about it. And my father just couldn't believe that this, however crazy this world, this Romeo and Juliet world that was being created it was not fitting for a 12-year-old to be the best friend of these adults in this movie. It just didn't make sense to him. But we talked about it, me and my father, and it wasn't his decision that I wouldn't do it, but it was my decision, because in England you had to at 12 years old, you're about to start your new school, your secondary school. And it was either basically at that point in my life, I didn't do that and I went to do Romeo and Juliet. Essentially, I would no longer be able to do my GCSEs in England, the national exams. I would have gotten too far behind. And then that would have repercussion after repercussion. Ultimately, it felt like I could either move to Los Angeles and have this career as an actor, or I could get an education. And I decided I want to have an education and maybe I could be an actor later.
Wow. So yeah, Romeo and Juliet and Leonardo DiCaprio is like a big turning point in your career right then. Do you look back and kind of think about the road not traveled, or is that something you've still felt confident on leaving behind you?
I've thought about it, but I think if I were to be asked to make the same decision again, I would, if I had the same question put to me, I would make the same decision. The better educated you are, the better actor you are. And you needed to have experience, not just from life, but from, history and philosophy and languages, and all of these things contribute to your ability to operate as an actor. And so I wanted to have an education, and I had a good education waiting for me in England. So I wanted to get back to it.
Yeah, education is definitely important. And it's one thing to wrap your head around. Child actors, they're missing out on so much while doing those films. So like, good on you for putting your head first there. And yeah, I honestly, what your dad said is one thing that stuck to me while you were talking about that role. I don't see how what you said, a 12-year-old kid would have mixed with the Montagues there at all. I don't understand. Most of the time they're all like hanging around with guns and everything. And what would have you been doing? Did they actually audition you and talk how that would have fit in the story at all?
No, they didn't. And it would have been crazy, and it might have been what broke the film if I had been in it. But who knows?
So that was just Leonardo's wish. It wasn't anything to do with the directors or the writers or anything.
Well, Baz Luhrmann, he was trying to convince my father that it was something I should do. So I guess he and Leo decided that it was a good thing for the film. But
Baz Luhrmann, yeah. So he co-wrote the film, right? Okay. So yeah, they were trying to pen it into the script and make it work, right? So obviously, you wouldn't have been hanging around the beach with guns or, running someone down trying to stab John Leguizamo or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, no, that film's great, amazing. Like I'm not a big fan of any of the other Romeo and Juliets. That one, especially in Leonardo DiCaprio's career, pulled off, tragedy. I think it's probably one of the first films that made me cry when I was a kid. But yeah, his performances are amazing. So yeah, it's a great film. Mm-hmm. After Marvin's Room, you obviously divided off to work on your schooling and everything. So in between there, you ended up starting up or co-creating a foundation called the Open Heart, which produces documentaries and such. How did the progression start with that and the ideas for that?
I went back to England, finished my schooling, went to university in New York. And then after university, I moved back to England again and got a job working at a theater in Northwest London that used to produce a lot of political theater, sort of verbatim pieces that were based on interviews with certain individuals. Like, for example, the 2012 London riots, I think it was 2012, they interviewed police officers and victims of arson and looters, and then they gathered all that information and they would with actors dramatize it and put it on stage. So I did pieces like that. While I was working there, I was approached by a woman who wanted to produce a play in Jordan with Syrian women refugees. While she wanted me to run that workshop with another Syrian woman. And while we were doing that, she was going to make an updated version, a film version of a play called Trojan Women. This was about after the fall of Troy. And she wanted Angelina Jolie to play Helen of Troy, and the Greek gods were going to be the UN Security Council wasn't thinking about the fact that Star Wars were doing their first film in a long time, and they were shooting in Georgia. So all of the crew that they were hoping to hire were completely hoovered up by Star Wars, and so they weren't able to shoot their film. And the focus became this drama workshop where we produced a stage version of Trojan Women. And after that, I decided this was what I wanted to do, was work with asylum seekers and refugees and immigrants as they try to find their place in the world after finding themselves in exile. So I started this foundation with my friend Etab, and our first project was in Beirut in Lebanon, and we did a stage version of Antigone. And then ever since then, we shot a film of it as well, and that's the documentary you're referring to. And ever since then, that's the work I've continued to be interested in and carry out.
Well, I was hoping there would be a role and aggression for you to get in front of the camera rather than behind it. So is that something you'd like to do in the future, or you still want to be behind the scenes more of in front of it?
No, I mean, I've been doing theater for the last film I did was in 2014, I think. I did a film that we shot in London, an independent film called The Show. And I would, ever since then, I've been doing theater, and it's mostly been in New York and Boston. And I love it. I really love it. It makes me feel alive. And being, bringing joy and fun and entertainment to people is also invigorating. But I would say my main passion is the theater work that I do off the stage. But I love acting, and I hope to continue doing it for the rest of my life.
Some shape or form, doing theater rather than movies is the same kind of thing, except I think theater has a lot more talent behind it because, there's only one take. There's a lot of preparation for it, obviously, but no, that's definitely a talent and a lot more pressure, but perfecting it and getting it right, and I wish you all the best with it. And that's one thing about theater I'm upset about is, there is no video version of it most of the time, so I never get to catch them because they don't come down here.
Yeah, you get a much bigger audience with film. But that's, also the beauty of theater, as you're pointing out, is that you get one take, and everybody who's in the room, they got to experience that emotion in whatever form it took themselves and at one time, and then it's over. And it leaves, I don't know, it's the argument is ongoing, which is more powerful, theater or film, but they both have their strengths.
Yeah, no, you said obviously you traveled around a lot when you were younger. Just curious if you've ever been down to Australia before.
I haven't. My sister's name is Adelaide, actually, but I've always wanted to. I've got plenty of friends in Sydney and Melbourne, and I had an opportunity to go to New Zealand to meet a friend many years ago, but that didn't happen either. So that part of the world eludes me, and I'd love to make that trip at some point.
Yeah, here at Movieland, we love recommending movies. So I just want to know if you can give us 6 movies you recommend us to watch, old, new, whatever you want.
The recent Palestinian film, No Other Land, would be up there. Flee is also a film about, or not also, but is a film about refugees, which is a very important film, and it's a animated film. Big Lebowski has to be on everybody's list. I love bowling, and I love John Turturro as well. Usual Suspects also has to be on everybody's list. What's that? That's 4. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. Inside Out, I would say I love that film.
Yeah, the children's film, yeah. Yeah, no, it's great. I love when children's films really, blow your own mind, especially when you're older. It's like, wow. Yeah, I went to the sequel as well, and that was, I think, 2024's biggest box office.
I haven't seen the sequel.
Not as good as the first one.
No.
I wasn't overly impressed with it. It was okay. It was more about this anxiety character, and it kind of stressed me out the whole film.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, good list there. Big Lebowski, I've heard that one come up a lot, and I've still not seen it. Being a big movie fan, yeah. No.
You've got to see it. John Goodman, Jeff Bridges. It's fantastic.
Trust me, I'm aware of it. Like working in a video store and obviously within movies all the time, I'm aware of these films. It's just another one that pops up a lot. The Godfather, I still haven't seen it. It's just I'm just not, my kind of go-to. I don't know. I'm more of a, sci-fi action hero kind of, but I watch everything. I watch romance, I watch dramas. I love everything. It's just what mood am I in? So, okay, JFK. There once was a man named JFK. He always wanted to be good and do what was right. He was elected president in the United States in 1960. My last question about Indian in the Cupboard. Was that meant to be a joke, that kid? Because he just kept popping up every now and then, and that's one thing I think about more than I should.
I think you are thinking about him more than you should, for sure. I don't think there's very much about that film that was supposed to be a joke. I think it's such a sincere and heartwarming family film that I don't think that they were ever shooting for, especially not complicated humor. If there was humor, it was lighthearted and straightforward.
I think it was because when he first pops up, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, it's just everyone's sharing a story it's a setup to get you to talk about the Indian story. But at the very end of the film, it's like, you tell your Indian story again, and it's like you're having that triumphant moment and the score's going, and then in the background you hear very quietly, JFK, he's got another story. I'm trying not to cack myself laughing about him still talking about JFK.
Yeah.
If there's a sequel, he has to be there, and he needs to give us some more information about JFK. Or I'm not going to like it.
Okay, I'll pass on the message.
Thank you very much. But yeah, thanks for joining us, Hal. I wish you all the best with your future work. And don't forget to be kind and rewind. And I will be with you when the sun rises.
Thank you.
Download the digital Movieland magazine for free at movieland.au. Grab your popcorn and follow us, because we bring you a one-stop shop for news on new releases at the cinema, digital rentals, and all of the streaming services combined. Catch all of this and more at our website, movieland.au. Don't forget to follow us on social media for daily news, movie recommendations, and spoiler-free reviews.